What if control is the quiet force behind everything you're trying to achieve? Not talent, not luck, not perfect timing, but the ability to stay steady when everything around you is unstable. Because talent can give you a start, but without control, it fades under pressure. And failure often doesn't come from a lack of ability, it comes from losing focus, reacting emotionally, quitting too early, or making decisions in moments of stress. Staying calm under pressure is not something you're born with, it's something you build. Every time you choose not to react instantly, every time you pause instead of panic, every time you think instead of rush, you are training your mind. It's like a muscle. At first, it feels difficult. Your emotions try to take over, your thoughts become loud, your focus starts to slip. But with practice, you begin to create space between what you feel and what you do. And in that space, control is built. The people who appear strong are not always fearless, they are just more disciplined in how they respond. They still feel stress, doubt, and pressure. But instead of letting those feelings control their actions, they manage them. They slow down when things speed up. They stay grounded when things become uncertain. They act with clarity when others act with emotion. And that difference, small as it seems, changes everything. Because in life, the biggest moments are often the most intense. Pressure reveals habits. It exposes whether you react or respond, whether you collapse or stay steady. And if you've trained yourself to stay calm in those moments, you don't just survive them, you use them. Pressure doesn't create who you are, it reveals who you've trained yourself to be. When everything feels urgent, most people lose control because they've never practiced staying steady. They react to stress instead of managing it. But the people who stay calm in those moments are not special. They are prepared. They've built habits that keep them grounded when things get intense. And that preparation shows up exactly when it matters most. Staying calm starts with slowing down your reaction. The moment pressure hits, your instinct is to rush, to fix everything instantly, to respond emotionally. But control begins when you pause. Even a few seconds of stillness can change your response completely. You give your mind time to process instead of panic. And when you think clearly, your decisions improve. You stop creating more problems and start solving the actual one in front of you. Focus is the next step. Pressure often comes with distractions, multiple problems, multiple voices, multiple expectations. If you try to handle everything at once, you lose clarity. But when you narrow your focus to one action at a time, things become manageable. You move from chaos to control. You stop feeling overwhelmed because you're not trying to do everything, you're doing what matters right now. Productivity under pressure is not about speed, it's about direction. Rushing leads to mistakes, but steady action leads to progress. When you combine calmness with focus, your work becomes more effective. You don't waste energy on stress, overthinking, or emotional reactions. You use that energy to move forward, step by step. And over time, this becomes your advantage. While others react, you respond. While others panic, you plan. While others lose control, you stay grounded. And that consistency in pressure is what sets you apart. Because in the moments that decide outcomes, it's not the loudest or fastest person who wins, it's the one who stays in control. Your mind is the first place where pressure shows up, and the first place where it must be controlled. The situation itself is often neutral at the start, but your thoughts quickly turn it into stress, fear, or panic. One negative thought leads to another, and before you realize it, you're not dealing with the problem anymore. You're dealing with your reaction to it. That's why control begins internally, not externally. When you train yourself to pause, even for a moment, you interrupt that chain. You create space between what is happening and how you respond to it. In that space, your thinking becomes clearer. Instead of reacting automatically, you start choosing your response. Breathing slowly, focusing your attention, and grounding yourself in the present moment may seem simple, but it changes everything. It stops your mind from spiraling and brings you back to control. A calm mind doesn't mean a problem-free life, it means a controlled response to problems. When your thoughts are steady, your decisions improve. You don't rush into mistakes. You don't let fear dictate your actions. You assess, you plan, and you act with intention. And over time, this habit builds confidence, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger in handling it. Once your mind is under control, everything else follows. Your actions become more disciplined, your focus becomes sharper, and your results become more consistent. Because in the end, it's not the situation that defines you, it's how you think in that situation. And when you master that, you don't just handle pressure, you rise above it. When everything around you starts moving fast, your instinct is to match that speed. You feel the urgency, the pressure, the need to act immediately. But that reaction is exactly what leads to mistakes. Rushing doesn't create control, it removes it. And once control is gone, even simple decisions become complicated. Slowing down in those moments is not weakness, it's discipline. It means you are choosing clarity over chaos. When you pause, even briefly, you give your mind time to organize itself. Your breathing steadies, your thoughts settle, and your focus returns. Instead of reacting to everything at once, you begin to see what actually matters. This is where sharpness comes from. Not from moving faster than everyone else, but from thinking clearer than everyone else. When your mind is calm, your actions become precise. You stop wasting energy on panic and start using it on progress. You don't just move, you move with direction. And that's the difference most people miss. Speed without control creates confusion. But controlled, steady action creates results. When you master the ability to slow down in high-pressure moments, you don't fall behind, you actually move ahead, because every step you take is intentional, not impulsive. Emotions are part of being human, they show up automatically, often before you even realize it. Anger, stress, frustration, they all have a purpose. They signal that something needs attention. But the mistake most people make is treating those signals like commands. They feel something, and they act on it immediately. And that's where control is lost. When you start seeing emotions as information instead of instructions, everything changes. Anger might be telling you that a boundary was crossed. Stress might be telling you that something needs to be organized. Frustration might be pointing to a gap between expectation and reality. These signals are useful, but only if you pause and understand them instead of reacting blindly. Discipline comes in that pause. You feel the emotion fully, but you don't let it decide your next move. You give yourself time to think. You choose a response that aligns with your long-term goals, not your temporary feelings. That's the difference between reacting and responding. One is automatic, the other is controlled. This doesn't mean you suppress emotions. Ignoring them only pushes them deeper, where they build pressure over time. Instead, you acknowledge them, understand them, and then decide what to do next. You stay in control, even when the emotion is strong, and over time, this builds emotional strength. You stop being controlled by every feeling that comes and goes. You become steady, grounded, and clear in your actions. Because when emotions no longer control you, your decisions become stronger, and your life becomes more stable. Most stress doesn't come from what's happening, it comes from trying to control what was never yours to control. You start thinking about outcomes, other people's reactions, timing, and situations that are constantly changing. And the more you try to manage all of that, the more overwhelmed you feel. Because you're fighting something that will never fully listen to you. When you shift your focus back to what is in your control, everything becomes clearer. Your effort, your attitude, your actions, these are stable. These are yours. No matter what's happening around you, you can still choose how you show up, how you respond, and how much effort you put in. That shift alone removes a huge amount of pressure. It also gives you direction. Instead of wasting energy worrying about results, you invest that energy into action. You stop asking, what if this goes wrong, and start asking, what can I do right now? And that question brings you back to the present, where real progress happens. This doesn't mean outcomes don't matter, it means you don't let them control your state of mind. You do your part fully, without attaching your piece to how things turn out. And ironically, when you stop obsessing over results, your performance improves. Because your focus is no longer scattered, it's grounded. That's where strength comes from. Not from controlling everything, but from mastering what's already yours. And when you stay focused on that, pressure stops feeling overwhelming. And starts feeling manageable. Discipline is not something you suddenly discover in a big, life-changing moment, it's something you quietly build in the small, almost invisible choices you make every single day. It's in waking up when you said you would, even when you don't feel like it. It's in finishing what you started, even when no one is watching. It's in choosing control over impulse, especially in moments when reacting would be easier. These small decisions may not feel important in the moment, but they are shaping your mindset, your habits, and your identity. Every time you follow through on a small promise to yourself, you strengthen trust within yourself. And that trust becomes your foundation. Because when real pressure comes, and it always does, you don't suddenly become disciplined. You fall back on what you've been practicing. If your daily habits are weak, pressure will expose that. But if your daily habits are strong, pressure will reveal your control. Think of discipline like training your mind to stay consistent, no matter the mood, no matter the situation. Some days it feels easy, other days it feels heavy, but you show up anyway. That repetition builds resilience. It teaches your mind that action is not based on feelings, it's based on commitment. And over time, these small wins start to compound. You become more focused, more controlled, more reliable. Not because you forced yourself in one big moment, but because you stayed consistent in 1,000 small ones. That's how discipline grows. Quietly, steadily, until one day, it becomes who you are. When emotions rise, clarity drops. In those moments, your mind is not thinking, it's reacting. Anger pushes you to speak quickly, stress pushes you to act without thinking, and frustration makes everything feel more intense than it actually is. And if you speak in that state, your words are not coming from control, they're coming from impulse. That's where damage happens. Silence in those moments is not weakness, it's protection. It protects your relationships, your reputation, and your decisions. When you choose to stay quiet, even for a short time, you give yourself space to regain control. You allow your emotions to settle before they turn into actions you might regret later. Strong people understand this difference. They don't feel less, they just don't react instantly. They pause. They observe what they're feeling. They let the intensity pass before responding. And when they finally speak, their words are measured, intentional, and controlled. This habit changes everything. You stop saying things you don't mean. You stop making decisions based on temporary emotions. You stop turning small moments into bigger problems. Instead, you respond with clarity, not chaos. Because in the end, it's not the emotion that causes regret, it's the reaction to it. And when you learn to stay silent when emotions are loud, you take back control in the moments where most people lose it. Pressure doesn't come to break you, it comes to reveal you. It exposes your habits, your mindset, your level of preparation. Most people see pressure as something negative, something to avoid. But the truth is, pressure is neutral. It becomes harmful only when you don't know how to handle it. When you do, it becomes one of your greatest advantages. Instead of resisting pressure, you start using it as a signal. A signal to focus more, not panic more. A signal to become sharper, not rushed. When things get intense, you don't scatter your energy, you direct it. You cut out distractions, you prioritize what matters, and you move with purpose. Pressure forces clarity if you let it. It also pushes you to improve. You realize where you're unprepared, where your discipline is weak, where your mindset needs work. And instead of feeling defeated by that, you use it. You train harder, think deeper, and build stronger habits so that next time, you're ready. That's how pressure turns into growth. Strong minds are not built in comfort, they are built in challenge. Just like pressure forms diamonds, it shapes people who learn to stay steady under weight. Over time, you stop fearing intense situations because you've trained yourself to handle them. What once felt overwhelming starts to feel familiar. And that's the shift. Pressure no longer controls you, you control yourself within it. And when that happens, pressure stops being something you survive and becomes something you use to rise. Your environment shapes your mind more than most people realize. What you see, hear, and experience daily slowly becomes part of your thoughts. If your surroundings are chaotic, distracted, or negative, your mind naturally absorbs that energy. Stress increases, focus weakens, and clarity becomes harder to maintain, not because you are weak, but because your environment is pulling your attention in too many directions. That's why discipline is not only internal, it's also external. You don't just control your thoughts, you also shape the space those thoughts exist in. When you reduce distractions, you give your mind room to breathe. When you keep your space clean and organized, your thinking becomes clearer. When you limit unnecessary noise, both physical and social, you create mental stability. The people around you also matter. Energy is contagious. Being around calm, focused individuals naturally influences how you think and behave. On the other hand, constant negativity, drama, or lack of direction can slowly pull you away from your own goals. That's why choosing your environment is not isolation, it's protection of your progress. A controlled environment doesn't mean a perfect one. It means an intentional one. A space that supports your focus instead of breaking it. A space that reduces friction instead of creating it. And when your surroundings become aligned with your goals, your mind follows naturally. Sometimes life doesn't follow your expectations. Plans fall apart, people change, and situations don't turn out the way you imagined. In those moments, most people get stuck in resistance. They replay what went wrong, they question everything, and they try to fight a reality that has already happened. But emotional control begins when you stop resisting what is and start working with what remains. Accepting reality doesn't mean you like it, it means you stop wasting energy denying it. Because denial doesn't fix anything. It only keeps you stuck in the past while life keeps moving forward. When you accept the situation as it is, you remove unnecessary emotional weight. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I do now?" That single shift changes your mindset completely. Instead of feeling powerless, you become focused. Instead of breaking down, you start thinking clearly. Acceptance doesn't make you weak, it makes you responsive. It allows you to see options you couldn't see while you were emotionally stuck. And from that point, you begin to move forward. Not slowly in confusion, but steadily with direction. You stop reacting to what happened and start building what comes next. That's where strength is formed, not in avoiding problems, but in adapting to them quickly. Because in the end, life will always bring uncertainty. The difference is not what happens to you. It's how fast you accept it, adjust to it, and continue forward. When pressure hits next time, the real question isn't what happens to you, it's what you do with it. Most people react. They get emotional, they rush decisions, they lose control for a moment, and that moment decides everything. But you already understand something deeper now, pressure is not there to break you, it's there to reveal you. So you have a choice. Will you react like everyone else? Panic, overthink, and let the situation control your mind? Or will you do something different, pause, breathe, think clearly, and take control of your response? Because that small gap between pressure and reaction is where power exists. That's where discipline lives. That's where strong people are made. Rising above doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you don't let what you feel decide what you do. You slow down when others rush. You think when others panic. You respond when others react. And that is what separates chaos from control. So next time pressure shows up, remember this: you are not tested by the situation itself, you are tested by your reaction to it. Now the real question is, will you react, or will you rise? True strength is not shown in loud reactions, but in quiet control when everything inside you wants to break. If this content gave you real value, don't just consume it, take a moment to reflect on it and apply at least one idea in your own life. Because understanding something is easy, but living it is what creates change. If you want to support the video, you can like it, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss future content like this. And most importantly, share your thoughts in the comments. What part resonated with you the most? Do you agree with this mindset, or do you see it differently? Your opinion matters, and it can also help others who are going through the same struggles.